Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and today I am a buttered up Butterbell boy.
Yes, you are.
For a housewarming gift, I was given a fancy new Butterbell by Dan and Trevor, and I can't wait to try it out. I'm going to put butter in it.
Like he's supposed to.
Traditionalist, I see.
I mean, what else do you put in there?
Hey, my name is Don. I'm a big chubby guy living in sunny Hollywood, and I am pro butter. I am pro butter.
Oh, good.
Pro butter.
I'm strongly pro.
That's a hot
I'm pro
take.
salted butter.
It's quite a stance to have.
Butter. Yeah.
My name is Dan Oliverio. I'm a chubby chaser, author, public speaker, and yes, also very pro butter. We have two kinds of butter in the fridge. We have salted, we have unsalted. We have yet to make compound butter.
Compound butter is fantastic.
But I'm sure that's coming.
Isn't it? What is compound butter?
It's with garlic and herbs.
Or infused butter.
Anytime you incorporate some other herb or spice into butter.
Infused butter.
Yeah.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub. I'm here we're in Studio City, I guess.
Valley
Live
Village.
from Studio City.
Valley Village, yeah.
Live from Valley Village.
Yeah.
And I am also a butter boy.
But for other reasons entirely.
Yeah. No,
Don't
I still have a lot of butter left over from my baking class.
Just
So
remember,
maybe I'll
butter
make
goes
some-
rancid.
Yeah, some compound butter.
Keep it in the fridge.
Only if you're a
Just
quitter.
wash it off.
Yeah. That's just a giving up attitude.
It's I had my coffee.
I also have my Starbucks here. We need to get a sponsorship from Starbucks. I feel like we
don't think we're gonna
we
get
could
that.
we could go really far with that though, because how many fat people get Starbucks?
We could put
Probably
a fat
lot.
logo on our website. You know,
Oh my God, big fat gay latte.
I'd order that.
I imagine by default, it's like you have to have they have the oat milk one. This one's like heavy cream. Mm-hmm. It's rich. It's buttery. Is it butter? Or are we going? Is this the theme for the episode?
I think there are going to be some spices in there. It's a little spicy.
We do have some spiciness. We got some sweetness.
Ooh, I make Dan. If I ask him to make me a latte for a dusting of cinnamon, and I'm very specific about
He
it.
is. If the cinnamon is not filtered through a strainer and dusted lightly on top, it does not pass muster.
Oh,
Because the first time I did this, Dan gave me a blanket of cinnamon, which is
Yeah, I took the goddamn cinnamon bottle and I sprinkled it over the top of the glass.
Cinnamon
no,
duvet.
apparently that doesn't work.
You didn't sprinkle, you shook it out. People, listeners know what I'm talking about.
well. Anyway, on to the show.
Yeah.
First up, but first we have in our little breakdown. We say, but first, we want to know how chasers have been represented in not just media, but fictional media. I think,
Yeah, fictional media.
Like what movies, shows. I suppose books could be on the table. Yeah. Because I don't think I've actually seen a chaser in something. I've heard about it, but it's like Dietland.
Yeah.
Like not great. Positive representations if possible. But we were sort of racking our brains for as many as we could think of, and it wasn't a lot. So if you guys have
they
heard
may
of
be
any,
at the point of representation where just showing up may be the representation.
And to be clear, it's not enough that you just have a thin person with a fat person. Like that's not necessarily a chubby chaser situation.
We're not talking Modern Family.
Yeah.
Modern Family it does not count to me. Although we have had listeners who had very positive experiences. We're not knocking Modern Family, but they're definitely not.
We're
a chub
looking
chaser
for
couple.
explicit representations of the chaser in popular media.
And I think it might only be identified in the media as somebody who has to say at some point, I like them because of their size, or somehow expresses that, where it's not like, oh, you know what? The one guy from Dumplin', the boyfriend, or like the guy that she's interested in, that he likes her, and he says, you know, she's like self-conscious about her back rolls or whatever, and he's like, I like that.
Yeah.
It was very simple and understated. That would be
that's all you need. That's all you need.
That would be, I guess, an FA. But anyway, so if you guys have any that you've seen or heard of, let us know, because we're going to do an episode about it.
Yeah.
Shh, don't tell anyone. All right. Shall we get on with it?
Let's get started.
There's
There's kind of a theme. I wonder if people will be able to get the theme
before we get to the main
before we
topic.
get to the main topic.
Okay.
It's not super obvious.
It's there. Think on it.
Yeah.
Think on your sins.
We're rolling into pop culture. There's also kind of a butter theme, I guess. So you're like a little pat of butter sliding down a pancake right into pop culture.
Ooh, sexy. So out of UC Health, this was crazy. Robotic kidney transplant opens door to patients with a higher BMI. Robots are doing surgery now. What will they think of next?
Robots are very clever.
They've come a long way.
The weird part is when I read the title of this, I was picturing an actual like robotic kidney that like walked up to the sleeping person, like extended little spider legs and made an incision and crawled its way in and then eliminated the kidney. And
Too much Matrix, Don. Too much Matrix.
Too much or not too much enough?
No, apparently the robotic surgery entails, because in a kidney transplant, or I guess, is it transplant, right?
Yeah.
They don't put the kidney back where it belongs. They put it somewhat lower.
Closer to the abdomen.
Yeah, which confused me because I thought the kidney was already there, but
Your
okay.
bladder.
Okay. Anyway, but they use this robotic technique, and apparently using the precision and accuracy of the robot allows them to admit higher BMI patients, which of course means that the problem with having a higher BMI is the surgeon, not the patient.
Part of it was the size of the incision of the different kinds of surgery. So on a typical transplant surgery, you have to make like a 10-inch incision, which I get, and in a place on the body where it's placed, basically, that is, I guess, harder to do or more dangerous to do the more belly fat you have. I don't know much about that, but that's how it was described, versus the robot surgery where the incision is only like an inch or two long. It's much smaller and it's closer to your belly button. So I think the placement is also somewhat more optimal to like having it be safer or easier to do. But basically it was this doctor who has a few different fields of expertise, including urology, where they do a lot of robotic work. And he partnered with the university, and they did this sort of first robot kidney transplant surgery for a guy whose BMI was 35, 40.
I think it was lower than 40. But, you can still get the whiff of anti-fat bias in this, because one of the things the surgeon says is he didn't think it was fair. And if you read on, it's interesting that the candidate they chose, this guy, the patient, it's very clearly not his fault.
Right.
And they go, and over again, you see, well, okay, it's a genetic condition. His kidneys have a problem, and that his higher BMI is actually due to the size and weight of his kidneys.
Right. They're like,
and so there's a lot of like extenuating circumstances that eliminates a lot of the slings and arrows that a lot of anti-fat people would sling at this.
I thought it was interesting though. I don't know if it's the same doctor who mentions that like it's not fair to expect people who have, to accept people who are undergoing dialysis to lose weight while undergoing dialysis.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Just because it's like your body is, you're experiencing muscle wasting, and just like it's not we shouldn't be asking people to try to lose weight for this.
Yeah. And to Dan's point, there is like the article itself kind of goes out of its way to say like, well, the guy, like when he did get the surgery and he's really working hard to be active and lose that weight. And like, he's really being a good.
So much of it focuses on how it's not his fault.
Yeah. But I mean, on the plus side, very cool that this is possible.
Yeah.
Basically it takes a 3D image of the inside of the guy, of whoever the patient's body, inserts these tiny little arms, these robot arms into the body. And then the surgeon is sort of using a control panel and making all of the movements with their hands. And then the robot arms are interpreting these movements and doing them themselves.
It's remarkable.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
And very, very cool.
Not quite Don's nightmare kidney robot.
No.
Maybe next time.
But we'll get there.
Maybe next time. Don. Maybe next time.
The face hugger
Just
kidney.
you wait.
The disappointment on Don's face.
Come on, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I do not. I would
imagine,
be
like,
terrified if I saw
Imagine the truck carrying all of them.
For fuck's sake.
Tipping over, the crate spilling over, and then just robotic kidneys running amok through Burbank.
Kidney.
Amazing.
I was scanning through my horror sound effects from our Halloween episode, but none of them really captured what you
robot
described
kidney?
appropriately.
Yeah, robot kidney. What is the
Spider
sound?
kidneys. Spider kidneys. Spider kidneys.
Well, moving on.
Yeah. There is a piece in Vogue by Emma Spector talking about Nicola Coughlan from Bridgerton, and just kind of Nicola Coughlan talking about asking for respect on Instagram, but also just a fat identity and the shame of having to do that.
Right. Basically just to asking people very nicely, if you have an opinion about me and my size, just don't share it with me. I don't
need to know.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's even something you have to ask for.
The article has two prongs there. It's one that, number one, that she would have to even say such a thing. And two, that she says it so nicely, as opposed to fuck off, I don't want to hear you. She's like, if you do have an opinion, I would just appreciate it if you wouldn't share. Like, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
it's so courteous to these people.
I think there is not a single fat person in the world who doesn't understand that sentiment.
Yeah, well.
And hasn't wanted to say that at some point.
And I don't think you're allowed to get angry, because then that's just going to be what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's so typical that, number one, that women aren't allowed to get angry. And that two, that you'd have to handle these awful people with such kid gloves.
Well, and the article, I think, gives her the benefit of the doubt here, in that she could have gotten very angry about it and chose not to.
She could have, but I think that would have made it worse.
Yeah, but I guess the point was that at least the writer of the article placed it within her power to choose. Like, yes. I chose to be polite about this and nice, and the fact that you have to ask at all is nuts. She would have been equally justified to rant and rave and say "fuck you all." Yeah. I thought the most interesting point, though, was that it's not just, it would be very easy to say like, oh, this is just all of the horrible trolls that are saying awful things about her size. And that's what you're trying to block out, and you can throw them all in a trash bin. But that's not the only source of this kind of input.
Right.
You can get it from we've talked about this, like friends, family, your mom,
your fans.
Yeah. People who
are making reviewers.
Oh my fucking
reviewers.
God.
Like worst. Even the best, I remember, Margaret Cho was doing something. I can't remember what it was. And it seemed like every review I read referred to her as the Zoftig Margaret Cho plays, blah, blah, blah. And it had nothing to do with the role, had nothing to do with the part, had nothing to do with the project. And she was the only person described physically in any way.
Of course.
And I understand what you're talking about, my dear. And to top it off, on Twitter, I feel like people are you don't see people on Twitter as being people, right? They're just forces out there. So that visceral dislike has no filter at that point.
Or sometimes it's not even dislike. It's that, the author of the article talks about how it's often it's coming from inside the house.
Right.
It's other fat people telling other fat people, like, I'm worried about you. Or like, wow, you'd be so pretty if.
That's the one that, like, you would be really attractive if you lost this much weight or whatever.
I know that's a stereotype, but like, I feel like that's one of the most damaging sentences out there.
I firmly believe.
And common.
That, that's, I'm sure, extremely common. I feel like everybody, like, once somebody hits a place where they're happy and there's always like at the sort of that place where somebody physically represents the best version of themselves. And I don't know if it's really related to weight at all, but you can just see it. Like, they are sort of like radiating their own, I don't know, like confidence maybe is part of it, but like you can just tell like, oh, you're in a good space. You look great right now. And maybe it's because you feel great. I don't know.
Well, what's ridiculous is so often if someone perceives a fat person to be looking particularly good on a particular day, they say, have you lost weight?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way a fat person could look good, right? Is if they lost weight. And it's this self-reinforcing
That's
nonsense.
Interesting. Because I remember I was getting that a lot when I was reuniting with people post-COVID. That was a pretty consistent thing. And it's like, it didn't occur to me. Like, it's not that they think I lost weight. It's that they're happy to see me.
They're happy to see you. They think you look good, and looking good for you must mean lost weight.
That's an interesting chain of thought I had not followed.
Oh yeah,
I get that a lot when I get haircuts, and it's like your face looks so much thinner. Listener, most people know what I look like, and that like I have an extremely fat face, and to be like your face looks so thin, it's like
no, it doesn't.
Come on,
like I guess you're trying to say I look good,
or is that a veiled weight loss thing? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, that it's a weight loss thing, but it's so obviously not
true,
accurate, and it's just like weird. And I
wonder if people literally just don't know how to make a compliment that isn't weight.
Well, I think you should respond like, "Wow, and you look so much taller."
The writer wraps up the article, I think, really nicely by saying, "For the sake of Nicola Coughlan and every other fat person in the public eye, I hope that we, and by we I mean non-fat people as well as fat people, can build a world that doesn't compel us to beg for scraps of approval or to send strangers rude DMs." which I don't think is too much of an ask to make. Personally, make it happen.
And also don't tag people like celebrities in your weird posts. This is not fat related, but like there's a lot of controversy around the casting of in the new Doctor Strange, like America Chavez, and people just really going after this 15-year-old actress.
Jesus,
which I'm not going to get into it, but just like don't be weird. Just take a minute and just be like, is this weird?
Are they tagging her in these things?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
And like attacking her, like, how dare you?
Yes. You 15-year-old monster.
Jesus. All right. Well,
but listener, you're still riding that little pat of butter down the pancakes.
Whee!
It's time. You're soaring, which means
A lot of syrup is falling.
Oh God, yes. It's Fat Watch 2022.
2022.
We've made it, listener.
we're here.
Ride that butter.
Oh, yeah.
So Michael shared this, and this is actually something that there are several items and little bits and bobs of fat related news that like get lost to the void during our hiatuses,
Yeah.
which maybe at some point, if we ever do like a Patreon thing, we'll just like take like, hey, there's this thing that's really interesting that like I don't really know how to fit in anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
But it is cards you can order and give at the doctor's office that say, please don't weigh me. And it kind of explains why healthcare professionals should not be doing this all the time.
Yeah. So they're they're created by morelove.org, which is an online resource created to help parents raise kids who are free from body hate, disordered eating, and eating disorders. And the card says, please don't weigh me unless it's really medically necessary. If you really need my weight, please tell me why so that I can give you my informed consent. It's really straightforward, really simple, I would think. I don't know how a doctor would take that per se, but I'm curious.
One of the things I've started doing is...
I guess it would be the doctor, would be the nurse, though.
Well, it would go to the nurse, but it would be given to the doctor.
Yeah, because it's interesting what happens, because I started doing this just to train them. Like, I don't really care if I get weighed, but I care if someone gets weighed and it's trauma for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started training them like, yeah, some people are going to ask not to be weighed and I'm going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it does filter back, because the nurse is like, well, what do you mean? Well, why don't you just tell me your weight? I'm like, no. Let me know when you need to know, because right now, stepping into your office, you don't need to know.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes it comes back and like the doctor says, oh, you didn't get weighed. I've declined to have my blood pressure taken because the little instrument they use is fucked up. It's this thing, they put it on my wrist. It looks like some sort of 80s science fiction television Dick Tracy thing. And no, here's the best part. Because it has to be at the level of my heart, they want me to hold my wrist up at the level of my heart with my other hand.
Wait, what?
Yes, because it has to, when you take blood pressure, the cuff has to be at the level of the heart, which is why they usually put it on the upper arm.
You're not supposed to use any effort to raise your arm.
Exactly. That's my whole point. And so like, I remember I got a blood pressure reading that was literally off the scale. It was so high, it couldn't measure it. And I'm like, and he's like, oh, you better see your doctor about that, because it was a different physician. And I'm like, no, you need better equipment. That's ridiculous.
That drives me crazy.
I do not have a blood pressure of like 240 or something.
And I genuinely feel like they use the blood pressure to justify things they want to believe already. So like throughout 10 years I was with this doctor, I have never had high blood pressure, right? It's not one of my problems. One time I went in and it was just like a little bit on the high side, and it was like post-COVID, right? Like right during the breakout, and immediately they're like, okay, we're going to put you on these meds and these meds and these meds.
Wow.
And I'm like, I decline. I have another appointment in 2 weeks. We'll check again.
Meanwhile, I walk in there as a thin person. They say, yeah, it's a little high. How about this? Best 2 out of 3.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, but it's the only time, that one blip, and they were going to start medicating the hell out of me.
Absolutely.
For it.
No. I don't know how necessary this is, but what Michael does is he just has his own blood pressure cuff.
I've been looking into that just because my current doctor does not have a blood pressure cuff that fits me. And like at my old doctor, it was like there was a point where I would correct them, but they would just keep doing it wrong. So I just let them figure it out. Like I just let them go through thing of like, oh wait, this doesn't fit. Or like, oh, well, let's try it anyway. And then, they'd start pumping and it would explode off my arm. And it's like, I'm like, maybe do you have a bigger one? I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go get it from the other room. Yeah. It's like, well, it's so obvious. These things.
So if you haven't figured out what we're talking about today, because we haven't said it explicitly, we're talking about numbers.
Numbers.
Numbers and weight and the lying about it, the truth telling about it, the demanding for those numbers.
The obsession
and what it does to you.
I mean, the inciting incident for this episode was like, have you ever lied about your weight? And if so, why? And I think we should start
And in
there.
which direction?
Yeah, and in which direction? I'm curious. I don't know. Should we do a round table like one by one? Do you want to do it? Because I have. I can
Of course
say
I
that.
have.
Mm-hmm. Like I think everybody probably has, right?
Yeah.
Let's agree on that
But
one.
I have lied in both directions.
Yes.
Interesting. I have too, actually. Well, I haven't explicitly lied up, but I have rounded up kind of almost as a way of kind of looking at people and being like, I dare you to ask, like challenge me on that. Like just by a few pounds. But like if I'm like, I think at my heaviest I was around 225 or like 222, and I would round up to 225 and just kind of look at the person, and they inevitably would always come back like, "Oh, you don't look that. I can't believe
How dare you tell me that?
I can't believe like you look like you're like
Why must you turn our house into a place of lies?
And they would always come back and be like, "Oh, you look like you don't look any heavier than like 180." And it was almost like 180 was some high number. I've fluctuated. So in the last 10 years, when I moved to LA, I was around 165. I was basically a skinny teenager, but not anymore. And I've gone between that and like 225 and back down again and all over the place. And I don't know if I showed people pictures of me from the last 10 years, I don't know that anyone could really accurately guess any of those weights.
Well, but people are terrible at guessing weights. They are 100% terrible. And especially the farther outside the norm you are, the worse they get.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Trevor and Don can tell us like the ridiculous guesses they've gotten.
Point in case, the offer to be on my 600-pound life and just it's like, so it's either that or it's like, I'd say about like 280.
Yeah.
In our second episode, I talked about like the whole horse thing, the woman like trying to get me on the horse and like,
I'm not going to ride on the horse.
That's not going to be a good thing for anyone.
What was it, like 300 pounds?
Yeah.
Was the weight limit? Yeah.
But they don't know because most people, the scale only goes to 300. So at 301, can you even walk? It's this upper limit that people have in their minds. And so if 300 is literally the end of the rainbow, my God, they're 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, you don't look that big, so you must be 250. And it's this ridiculous conception. And I know so many people where the limits on the scale, right? Like, oh my God, I'm over 200 pounds, or oh my God, for bodybuilders, I dropped under a particular weight, or for gainers, like 300 is this terrifying, Star Trek end of the galaxy barrier.
I mean, so something that I ran into, this was, a couple of years ago at this point, I was having weird, I had a kidney stone, but it was still in the diagnosis phase of like, what's going on? And I was going for I think it was an MRI, and they were doing the contrastive dye thing. So is that MRI?
It can be, yes. You can use contrastive dye.
So they're going to be doing contrastive dye, and they're like, okay, we're going to inject it and then take you over. And I was like, well, can you make sure that the machine can actually hold me and accommodate me first? And I was like, what's the weight limit? And they're like, oh, well, no, but like, you're probably fine.
That's not
And I was like, okay, but before you inject me with radioactive dye, I want to make sure
we can do this.
That I can actually fit in the machine, that the machine will hold me. Like, can I go see the machine? Can I talk to the tech? And they were like, no, it'll be fine. Just we'll inject you with the dye and then take you over. And I was like, I am not letting you inject me with radioactive dye until I know that I can actually do this, because I know it's an issue that a lot of people face, and it varies wildly, location to location, the size of the machines. They were able to accommodate me, but to the fact that like it was such an issue, and that I know other people have had the opposite. We're like, oh no, the machine can't hold you.
I almost think it wasn't an MRI because the machine was. I've had MRIs and they are incredibly cramped little torpedo tubes. I mean, this was not that. So I trying to remember.
I mean, regardless, I was.
But you still think
it
easily was a happy ending.
Yeah, but I think also just the fact that it was a big, like it was a whole thing. It became like a major issue to make sure that a piece of medical equipment could accommodate me, and that like, why would I ask for that?
I'm curious, Don, you said you had lied in both directions before. What were the circumstances that pushed you in either direction as far as the number?
Well, lying down, I don't think anyone needs to explain because that's life in this world. You get judged by the number, so you slide the number down. When I'm being judged in the other direction in a personal ad, like I don't lie about my weight on my ad. If you ever see my personal ad, that is my weight, right? But people keep asking, right? And I'm like, okay, if you're asking, you're not sure what I look like, I'm gonna slide it up 10 pounds if I find you attractive. You know? I might.
Or down if you don't.
Oh, I have done that. Yeah, no, I have done that.
Oh, you don't want me? I'm only 250.
Yeah, I was trying to get somebody to go away.
That's cute.
But yeah, so I mean, I have to say the act of lying upward felt incredibly unnatural. It was entirely like a mental tactical move that was against my being, right? In that it felt like I was defaming myself by doing that. Does that make any kind of sense?
In both directions or just one direction?
Just up.
I would say more up than down. But yes, I have felt that way going down.
I was going to say, because you're just more used to lying down.
Yeah. I think you just get used to it. And I've justified it in my head for 1,010 reasons. So it's not as hard anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You know, lying up, I'm like, I know I'm not like, my body is my body, right? And the way it's portrayed in my ads, like my body is what you see, right? So it's not like I'm putting an ad, a picture from 20 years ago or something like that.
So I've done both. Usually going up, it's either like I have a question about the capacity of something, and I want a little wiggle room in terms of like I don't know. I don't trust weight capacities of things.
I know, so this
I want
chair
it to be
can
higher.
hold me, but can this chair hold me and a glass of water?
Yes.
You know?
It's like, it's hard to describe. Like I want,
If you have your keys in your pocket.
and because like, I feel like they're like, oh, well, like they could say like, oh, it's 300 pounds, but you'll be fine. Like, no, like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Don understands what I'm talking.
do. So
it's like
I picked up a chair near the start of COVID, right? And I bought one that was supposed to go up to 500 pounds, right? And it holds my weight and it's comfortable, but I can already feel it like it's twisting off center and getting more and more wobbly as time goes on. So like, that's not necessarily the truth. You want to investigate.
It's like the expiration date of foods. And like Trader Joe's expiration dates are far more on point. Where like it is midnight on that day. And it's like just the bell tolls and the mold just forms over everything. Whereas like
you ain't just whistling Dixie.
Well, I think so often when they rate the weight limits, it's like they take the chair, they put 500 pounds on top of it and leave it alone and go, nope, it's okay.
I really wonder though, because I feel like it could go both directions though. Like this is kind of like they say, oh, we could, we have had 500 pounds sit on this chair and it's been okay, but we don't want people coming back at 500 pounds saying they sat on the chair and broke it and then blaming us. And so maybe they lower that number to cover themselves a little bit and say like, well, we only said it took 350. So I don't know what you were
Maybe
thinking.
So. My point is going to what Don said is that I don't think in any case when they rate the weight capacities of furniture, they take into account the twisting, the turning, the hemming, the hawing. I mean, when you get out of a couch or when you sit down on the couch.
Not when I get out of a couch. When I
sit down on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah, when you sit down on the couch, that's some stresses.
I will, and in our new lovely recording space, Michael's couch,
I got a
the
new
first
couch.
time sitting on it, I was like, okay, this is
You're very delicate.
yes, very gingerly like deploy landing thrusters like
Yeah, you don't do that on our couch.
no.
And
Boom.
I will say, I think this couch has been holding
Yeah.
up pretty well. Trevor, Don, Michael have all been on it in all different spots.
Well, because it's basically 2 single beds wired together.
it
It's
is
enormous.
a giant couch. I've had a great experience with this company.
I will be practicing my gymnastics routine on it after the podcast.
It's
and
so
we'll see how it
freaking
holds up.
deep. Oh my God.
It's a massive. You could sleep on the couch for sure. Any of us could sleep on this couch. Yeah, maybe we'll do another follow up with furniture.
Sleepover couch episode.
We'll check back in a year and just see like how it's held up over time.
So something that this was something else that came up during. Oh God, the fixation on numbers. When we were discussing this, I thought of there was an article from I think it was last year. It could be 2 years ago because pandemic stuff, brain cataloging things of. Scientists researched certain foods and the effect it has on your lifespan in time.
so ridiculous.
And
Oh, you remember
I
this?
read this, and it's a hot dog will take 36 minutes off your life, which I actually forgot. I remembered it as a lower number. So when I looked this back up to talk about it on the episode, I was like, holy shit.
36
And
minutes.
now anytime I eat a hot dog, I'm just like, I was thinking 3 minutes. So I'm like, okay, 3 minutes is
Multiply that by 11.
And now he's setting a stopwatch.
well. And then like I had some little pigs in a blanket, frozen pigs in a blanket. Oh my God. And I was thinking about
How
like,
much of the-
what is
1
the
minute
math
per
of
pig in a
this?
blanket.
Oh, it's so ridiculous. It is such a nonsense misuse of statistics.
But you know what? I remember them doing that with cigarettes when I was a kid. I remember like for every pack of cigarettes you smoke, you're going to lose a half an hour off the end of your life. And even then I was wondering how the hell they were figuring
Yeah,
that out.
Apparently, some foods can add time to your life, and I think like a PB&J can add time, which I'm kind of surprised, maybe because of the
Well, if
peanuts.
you're in the right time zone, yes.
yeah. So
Just never travel west.
It's so dumb.
I do love the idea of that because then like the person dying, as long as you give them an IV of that superfood, they will never die.
Get them a peanut butter and jelly stab.
5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Another sandwich.
So wait a minute. So you could counteract the pigs in a blanket with enough PB&J.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Which is another food favorite. I love pigs in a blanket, and I love PB&J.
Just have them both together.
Yeah,
in
could
the
you
same
combine
meal.
them? Yeah.
There is this sort of culinary time warp we're working on here. This
Is this how time travel
bubble.
gets invented?
It's the hot dog.
You eat so many hot dogs that you actually start getting younger.
I'm picturing science.
It's a wiener inception.
It's like you know how kids make like the orange lamps or the pickle lamps or whatever.
No idea.
For science fair.
No idea
Where
what
it's like
you're
they're
talking
you get electricity from a pickle.
Oh, and then you can turn a light bulb on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's like that, but like thousands of hot dogs, and they like flip a switch and open a portal. Hot dog time for
Yeah, well, because that's the thing. Eventually, you're going to eat so many hot dogs that you go back before the time you were born. I mean, that's the thinking here.
This is the same science they use in the Princess Bride, where he's strapped to the machine that takes years off of your life.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, "No, don't push it to 50." He's just force feeding him hot dogs. This is the same. And they counteracted that with PB&Js in the movie as well. That was the pill that he makes him take. Yeah, that was just a PB&J squished up a lot.
You know, the things we as the general public don't know, Michael. It's just astonishing.
So sorry.
These movie
there's
magic tricks.
So what was your other tangent?
aside
Trevor?
from hot dogs. When I was writing my New York Times essay, I was doing a workshop, and I felt it was important, given just the medium. There ended up being a picture of me, but I didn't know if there would be a picture of me to include my weight. And everyone discouraged me from it because they're like, if I knew your weight, I would find it so distracting, and I would have a million other questions.
And by the
I
way,
would
when
get
they said
fixated
this,
on
they
it.
still didn't know your weight.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, oh my God, that's so high.
Well, and I mean, the article was about being fat and working out.
Yes.
Like that was wrapped into the subject of the article as well, and so
Yes.
that was part
Yeah,
of.
he wanted
information.
he wanted to use his weight as a way of telling the reader, like, okay, it's this size. I'm talking about being this size.
Well, because if you just say like a fat person in the gym, that's anywhere from 225
198 pounds.
I got it, but also just it's so strange to me, but I get it.
Well, I'm curious, was it, because the first thought I have is like, don't tell me your weight because then I'm going to think about my weight and then I'm off on a trauma spin. Or was it not that? Was it something else?
I don't know. I think it's just like,
I think it's just not being able to conceive of a weight that high.
Well,
they didn't know the number.
They didn't know the number.
They didn't know the number.
but I think it's like, so to bring things back to my 600-pound life, being the casting director, reaching out to people on Instagram. So one of my former Pilates instructors, as like a way to relate to me about like, I don't know, fat politics stuff, I guess, or like body positivity or whatever, would be like 600-pound Life is one of my favorite shows, and I think it's so great that like people like they really there's the people in the show really have people who just really love them, and like they're.
I think I mentioned before.
It's so well intentioned.
I got a phone call from an old friend at like 10:30 at night. This was like 15 years ago. And he sounded so excited, right? He's like, I've got the best idea to jumpstart your career.
Oh boy.
It's going to be great. The exposure will be amazing. The Biggest Loser. Like, I know the casting director. I can get you onto the show. God. And like,
what did you do? I mean, I know you want to shoot him in the face, but what did you actually do?
Well, he's dead now.
I was so surprised by it, right? It just came out of the blue. It's 10:30 at night. I'm getting ready for bed.
Oh my God.
And
I just had to tell you.
Yeah, and he was so pleased with himself.
Of course he was.
Good luck trying to sleep now.
Yeah, I think all I managed was like, oh, I'll think about that. Yeah, how interesting. And,
How does anyone, I mean, I get that not everyone's me, but how does anyone watch or know about The Biggest Loser and not get that the whole point of that show is to make fun of fat people?
I don't think mainstream people think of it that way at all.
I understand that,
people
but like
don't-
how?
I have a theory, but go ahead, Trevor.
I mean, it's the same thing with like my 600-pound Life and 1,000-pound Sisters, and now the spinoff 1,000-pound Friends, which I was trying to figure out if there's 4 people, and I was like, they're not all 1,000 pounds. Are they collectively 1,000 pounds? Once again, math, numbers.
That's what I'd assume.
I figured it out. Okay, hold on. I'm still working it out in my head, but hear the thought process. So, okay. So a mainstream person sits down to watch the premiere episode of Biggest Loser, and they're going into it. Maybe they have some buried instinct of guilt about it. Like, am I supposed to, but then as they start watching it, they're entertained because they have that instinct of wanting to, laugh at fat people. But they know that the show is about helping fat people. Right. And so it becomes a guilt-free, it is the diet food of television. Yeah. It is a guilt-free experience.
Well, it is the
Macwells.
Yes, exactly.
It's the healthism fake out. I don't hate fat people. I hate that they die young.
Right.
I want them to be healthy.
It's that fake out thing, right? So, and it works on the show works on so many levels. First of all, it's called The Biggest Loser, right? So you know that anyone you see on there is having a worse life than you are.
Yeah.
So you like that. Then number 2, it's the idea that, well, they're pathetic and I can laugh at them. And they're torturing them. So if you hate fat people and want to see them tortured, you get that bonus. And third, you get to feel good about fat people being tortured because it's for their own good.
And on top of that, it's an affirmation of their existing belief systems.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
You are
Who could
correct
argue
in
that?
everything you think about the science of fat. It's all their fault. Look, it all fixes.
But it's not. But it's not just. But see, it's the Fox News thing. It's not just that you're correct in your belief. It's that you're correct in your belief for not liking these people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's you can still have a sugary snack food, but it's still diet food. So, all right. So bringing it back to numbers for a second, how does The Biggest Loser as a show change when you remove, because the whole conceit of that show is they weigh
numbers.
them and then they continue to weigh them. And at the end, there's the big reveal of the number. How does that show change if there is no number?
It's not.
It's fine. It's fine if there's no. Then it just becomes Ninja Fat Warrior.
Well, I'd watch that.
I mean, I feel like it's just like the people would still like it, but I think if all of these shows, Biggest Loser, My 600-pound Life, 1,000-pound Sisters, 1,000-pound Friends, if you removed, I mean, there would just be so much like, I think people would still like it, but I feel like it would be so much content missing from the show because there's so much about like, this week you lost X, Y, Z.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that it would be much harder to produce, right? because you don't have just, here's a task, go do it, and then we're going to film the number, and no matter what happens, we've got a show. As opposed to if you remove the numbers, then it has to be, watch this person progress from point A to point B, right? Like, I can't climb this mountain. I would like to climb this mountain. And the goal of the show is to help them.
But it's not. But it's not. But it's not the goal. I mean, or you're saying if they remove the number?
I'm saying if they remove the number.
Oh yeah. Oh well,
because
Don,
how else are you going to demonstrate?
But Don, if you remove the torture, it's not nearly as fun.
Well, but I mean,
that's
still
my
trying
point.
to think
Yeah,
of
no,
like
you're right,
how
you're right.
you would do that, because it's just like the shows are so wrapped up
I think-
in numbers, and like what would it be?
the number
That's
is
the thing. You would
easiest-
remove fat. Fat no longer becomes the factor. It becomes achieving a goal. So it would be a thin person, can you get to the top of the mountain? Fat person, can you get to the top of the mountain? And then it's the work of them trying to get there.
It would be pretty cool to see, like, if it was just all comers and there were fat people who could do things that the thin people couldn't. That would be super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could outswim most thin people.
Yeah.
I could absolutely outswim most thin people.
I mean, Dexter could outdance most people. I think if you remove the number, not just the number of weight, but the number of measurement, like any number, if you removed any kind of number from the producing of that show, it becomes, I think, impossible to be the same level of damaging. Like you have to change the content of the show to be somehow more.
Well, but yes, because the whole lie of the show is that your weight is your health.
Right.
Which is absurd because everybody who graduates from that show is much less healthy.
Yeah.
Here's a catchphrase I think we can all cling to. Health is not a number.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like what would the show be? Like what would my 600-pound life be if like, okay, so we're not going to like discuss the numbers of them losing weight. It's like literally some like
my
like what the show, I can't think of what the show is other than them like
my fat
Well,
life.
for example, you could make it about other measures of actual health. You could make it about blood pressure. You could make it about blood sugar. You could make it about the calcium.
these
the
are
measurement
all
of calcium deposits.
These are all measurements. Like if you just took it as like,
No, but if you're saying if you took the weight out, you could
but
replace
if
it
you
with
just take out
actual
like
measures of
measuring,
health.
like measuring,
anything.
if you
Kill
remove
the
any kind of
numbers.
measurement,
Kill
it's
the
just-
numbers.
Yeah.
And that's
what is the show that it's just like fat person walking into a doctor's office and it's like,
End of show.
But that's all they're really looking for. That's all the audience wants anyway. The number is just a method of expressing the drama. That's what that is.
Well, I don't think we've necessarily accomplished anything, but we've certainly talked about a lot of stuff.
yeah,
Numbers
I don't know.
are
I'm
bullshit, I would
I'm
say.
imagining that like my 600-pound life without any form of measurement. And it's like,
My some number life.
yeah. So we do have a tip.
We do have a tip.
Remove
We
the
do.
numbers from your life. That's
What's our tip today?
I'll let Dan share the tip because he shared it with all of us.
Yeah. So Self Magazine, as we mentioned before, has this ongoing series about. Trevor, help me out here. It's more than just being fat in the world. It's
Navigating, I would say,
The series.
kind of like exercise and wellness and kind of these industries. And
yeah. And the latest article they have is tips on picking a gym. And as a gym rat, I really love this article because it's so specific in like, observe this phenomenon. Observe this thing over here. Look at that. As opposed to think about how you'd feel if, no, really look at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really quick. It's a listicle. It's 8 things to look at. And I just thought it was brilliant. And people should, if you're thinking about looking at a gym and you're kind of cautious about it, these 8 tips are really, really executable. They're like, you can go do that.
Yeah. As examples, researching fitness spaces that have diverse representation.
Yeah, look around. Who do you see in the gym? Do you want to be with these people?
Yeah. And I would think like the more,
That's a really good
It's
way
so
of doing
basic
it.
and easy, right? Because if you're not comfortable there, you're not going to go.
yeah. Trainers who mirror your philosophy on weight and bodies. Like Dan saying, like a lot of hands-on practical, you can do this type of advice.
I actually want to say something about that last one. People forget that, usually if you go to a gym and you do this little fitness consultation, the trainer is trying to get a feel for what you want. And a lot of people feel incompetent because, you don't even have to be fat, but you just feel not competent because you're not in a gym. You haven't gone to a gym. Maybe you kind of know what you want, but you don't know how to express it. And maybe they know better than you do. No, they don't. No, they don't. So what do you really, it's okay that you have a particular way you want to approach this. The fact that you're even in the gym means that you have a valid way of approaching this for you. So it's really okay to see, that trainer isn't speaking my language. Get a different trainer.
And and I will say, just as a roundabout way of relating to that, so my method of getting workout, exercise, et cetera, is basically just soccer. That's the only thing I do that's particularly physically active. But even within that, like, I feel very confident as a player of soccer, but there are certain like home turfs that I have where, like, if I play at a certain field or a certain pickup game, I have that much more confidence in what I'm doing versus showing up new to a different game where I've never met anybody there. I feel very kind of, I get a little more nervous. I don't play as well. I sort of have a lot more reservations about just being there. And that is natural. Even if you already have existing confidence within that space, imagine if you don't have any. Like, you have to try and sort of work to create that for yourself. And these are tips to help you do that from the outset.
Yeah. And guess what? It's okay not to go to the gym.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
There's no points in heaven for going to the gym.
I don't go to the gym. Dan does go to the gym. Don sometimes. Trevor sometimes. Who cares? Yeah. Do what makes you feel good. All right, Don.
Give us the bits.
So we have a bit. So we just went through Valentine's Day, and we were talking about romance, and so I figured maybe you guys can help me pick like the best date for me. I've got a couple different people here. Help me figure out. So I like a really tall guy, right?
Okay.
I like a tall guy. So of these 4 guys, like, who do you think's the tallest? Who's the best for me? Genghis Khan, Napoleon Bonaparte, Mahatma Gandhi, or Joseph Stalin.
Oh. Do they really know how tall Genghis Khan was?
They do.
Wow. All right.
I like overachievers. So
I don't know, Michael. I think it's a con job.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Wow.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Wow.
I'm going to say
you're not even a dad.
No.
Amazing.
They're called puns. They go back thousands of years. Shakespeare, the first dad joke writer.
So you guys all know if how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Yeah.
Right. And then from Calvin and Hobbes, it's how many boards would the Mongols hoard if the Mongol hordes got bored?
I like that.
That's awesome.
I like
wrap
that.
it back in.
I like that.
I'm going to say Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan.
As the tallest?
Genghis Khan's the tallest.
I'm going to say Napoleon.
Oh, we got one for Napoleon. You're not going with Trevor?
I'm not going with Trevor.
Oh, okay.
You think it's Napoleon?
No.
He thinks it's Genghis Khan. I say Napoleon.
Oh, it's not Napoleon.
I mean, he wasn't tall, but he wasn't as short as people said he was either.
Well, he had his hand in his pocket.
Yeah, that makes you taller.
I kind of want to go with Stalin.
Okay.
Stalin? Okay.
Yeah.
Joseph Stalin.
All right. Well, it turns out, checking the stats on these different profiles,
They're all the exact same height.
the tallest of the bunch is, in fact, Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh.
Yeah. Coming in second place is Joseph Stalin at 5'5", Mahatma Gandhi at 5'4", and Genghis Khan at 5'1".
Whoa.
Yeah, so I remember reading this somewhat recently, actually. It was not that he was short. It's just that he's short compared to how tall people are now.
Yeah. And also there was a bit of a smear campaign against him, I think.
Right, yeah.
So, okay, so we've got my tall guy. Now, I feel like a young guy later in the day, right? So, like, which of these guys, who do you think's the youngest of these? So, Sylvester Stallone.
Currently, okay.
Currently. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Chuck Norris, or Jackie Chan.
I'm going to say Chuck Norris.
I say, hold on. Okay, so I know Chuck Norris was in a movie with Bruce Lee, and Jackie Chan was a young stuntman in a movie with Bruce Lee as well. Like young, like first job in his career.
Yeah, I think it's
Jackie Chan.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 2 Jackie Chans.
I'm going to say Chuck Norris.
Okay, we have the oldest of the bunch is Chuck Norris coming in at 81. The second oldest is Sylvester Stallone at 75.
Wow.
And the youngest at 67 is Jackie Chan.
Yeah, I'm 2 for 2.
Yay.
Yep.
What happened? Was Arnold in there?
I didn't mention Arnold. Arnold is 74.
Okay.
Jackie and Sylvester.
But I thought you didn't mention him? Okay.
A friend.
Okay. So I've had my tall guy. I've had my young guy. I think I need something a little kinky in the evening. So I need someone exceptional, someone with a very large
Penis?
Personality?
number of nipples.
What?
Okay. Which of these celebrities has the most nipples? Harry Styles, Marky Mark, Zac Efron, or Tilda Swinton?
Goodness gracious.
Uh,
Tilda Swinton.
Harry Styles.
I'm going to say Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg. All right. The correct answer with 4 nipples is Harry Styles.
I'm 3
my
for 3,
God.
baby.
3 for 3.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
I would be so much more impressed. if I
Marky
knew who
Mark
that was.
and Tilda Swinton have both publicly outed themselves as having 3 nipples. And Zac Efron has disputed a observation that he has a 3rd nipple.
So where, like, physiologically, where do they appear?
It's having a 3rd nipple is one of the most common human mutations. And it's just a few inches down below.
Huh.
And it can be just the nipple, or it can be a nipple and areola. It can be just sort of like a little mole that's sort of like a mini areola, but no nipple.
Huh.
That's welcome to the human body.
Okay.
Huh.
So I guess, after I'm going to be meeting these 3 guys, right? I want to make sure that we have a nice long time to get to know each other and enjoy each other fully, right? So which is the longest calendar currently around? Which calendar is using the largest number?
Okay.
Okay.
What do you mean the largest? Or will this become obvious when you mention the calendar?
Yes. So which has the highest number associated with it? The Chinese calendar, the Gregorian calendar, the Hebrew calendar, or the Buddhist calendar?
If we took today's year, which has the highest number?
This was a really hard one to phrase.
I'm going to say the Hebrew calendar.
Yeah, I think the Hebrew calendar.
Hebrew.
As longest or that we use?
Longest. Not the one that we
We use the Gregorian.
Gregorian,
Yeah.
right?
We do. Okay. So the shortest calendar of the list that I gave you is the Gregorian, where it's 2022.
Okay.
The second shortest is the Buddhist calendar, where it's 2563.
Damn.
And the longest one is the Hebrew.
I'm 4 for
That's
4.
right.
57, where it's 5782.
Ha.
The Chinese calendar is only
Nailed
at
it.
4720.
Hold on. I need some cheering sound effects. Do I have any cheering? I don't have any cheering sound. Well, anyway.
The crickets.
That is a sound effect that I think Michael will go out and get for himself.
I
before he
think
edits.
so.
I'm smart.
4 for 4.
Well, listener, how many nipples do you have? Let us know. We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Reviews on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars everywhere.
Spotify.
Yeah, that. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Maybe you're still riding that pat of butter, listener, and
Hasn't it
you're
melted by
off
now?
the pancakes. You're floating in the syrup sea, and oh no, there's a fork coming towards you, and it's Michael. He's gonna eat
I'm so hungry.
you're a sticky butter boy, and going towards Michael's mouth. So
Watch out.